the cloud, and we are going live. Give yourself about 15, 20 seconds.
We should be good. We should be live. I see the little live tag on the Zoom thing now. So yeah. So hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Conversations with Miss Megan, myself, and now Mr. Bob is hanging out with us today. So we're excited to have Bob along with us today. And if you haven't followed him, we'll make sure that his link is down below to WhizBang. And I got the pleasure when I found out that Bob was going to be on this of watching as many of his podcasts, daily podcasts, video podcasts as I could. The energy you have, it's something. It's something. I don't know how you get all that energy, but I love it. So I'm Steve Oakers. I'm in my garage again today, and Miss Megan Heritage is with us, and she's still in her office.
Hanging out in Grand Haven from my home office.
Hanging out in Grand Haven. A couple less doors today. A couple less doors, right?
My eldest son has lost the door to his bedroom for slamming it multiple times. So, and it's a special day. But you said that maybe there's something in the water because everybody's on the struggle bus on Wednesday.
Yeah, the kids have been off the rails today, but you know, tomorrow will be another day. So, Bob, thanks for joining us and participating in this leadership conversation. You're leading a pretty substantial organization which services and coaches lots of folks. So can you give us a little background of who Bob is, what you're up to before this, and then where you're heading now?
Sure. Thank you, Steve and Megan, for having me. I appreciate it. So if even before this, if you're in West Michigan, I started the Mackinac Kite Company in Mackinac City in 1981, and I was 23 years old. I didn't have any business experience, but I had a new passion, which was flying kites. So I thought I would open a kite store because everybody knows that it's easy to run a successful retail store, right?
Right.
So I went up to Mackinac City, started one of the world's first kite shops, and got into business. I hired my brother Steve, who still owns the Mackinac Kite Company, that first year. And for 19 years, we built that business. And then in 99, I sold my share of the Mackinac Kite Company to brother Steve. And Susan, who is also my wife, who I met late, 17, 16 years into my retail career. She was a retail executive. She had just moved to Michigan, and we fell in love, got married. In 99, I sold my share of the Mackinac Kite Company to my brother Steve, who still owns it. Now it's Mac Kite. And Susan and I started WhizBang Retail Training to help small to mid-size independent brick and mortar retailers become more successful. And, so we've been doing that. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary. And what we did was we took what we knew about running a successful small independent retail store and turned it into a business. And now that's what we do. I mean, that's our professional mission, is to help those people who have a dream of running a successful store and turning it into a real business that will support a lifestyle, support a family, earn a real living. So, I mean, that's who we are, and that's what we do.
It's
wonderful
business. I've had the opportunity to be inside of their offices, and not only are they super fun, they're incredibly strategic. If you go through a whiteboard session, I mean, it's unbelievable, the vision and the pop-ups that happen from one thing to another that you guys are able to create. And it's international or it's national?
Oh, no, it's international. I mean, we have, if you take our products and where our products have been sold, our flagship product is called the Retail Mastery System. And now it's digital, but once upon a time, it was we used to call it 22 pounds of retail love, right? It was, DVDs and CDs and books. And, if you bought it, you would get this giant box in the mail. And we have pictures of a little bodega, for lack of a better term, in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City. And there's 11 small Vietnamese women all standing in front of this store, all holding a module from the Retail Mastery System. So right now in our Platinum Mastermind group, in our highest level program, we have somebody who is a 5th generation butcher in England. And, he comes over for all of our meetings. He comes over for the Retail Success Summit in Grand Rapids. So no, most of our clients are North American, but we are an international business.
So cool.
Well, can you give us the breadth of what that is? Like, how many people are following you, are doing this mastery series? What is the breadth of, and then what is those businesses that you're talking to? Who are they? Because I think that will also help shape this conversation of
Sure.
How are you communicating to those people?
Right. So, they are small to mid-size independent brick and mortar retail. It's what people used to call mom and pop, but I just think that's such a misnomer, because mom and pop implies mom and dad in the store, like Fortino's if you're in West Michigan. It used to be Ken and Margie in the store, but that's not what good independents are now. Good independent retailers are cutting edge. They're tight, they're professional, they're good. But they don't have to be big to be good. They just have to have a passion. They have to be professional. And so that's really who we work with. So some of our clients have, a couple dozen stores. Some of them have only one store. But they really sort of fit under that umbrella of small to mid-size. We don't work with a Macy's or a Best Buy or something like that. It's just not it's not how we're built. We are those people. The reason that we're good at what we do is because we've walked 5,000 miles in their shoes. And so, and our community, I don't know, every week we send about 15,000 an email and a link to our video blog to about 15,000 people. Our Facebook community, WhizBang Retailers, is now at about 4,500 people. So it's not an enormous community, but, in our world, we have a very, very loyal following. And I like to think that we've done a great job of shaping the way that they think about business, shaping the way that they do business, how they present themselves in the world. So when we talk about leadership, we really see ourselves as a leader in that community. And we believe that it's our mission to help them do business the right way, so that independent retail as as a whole starts to reemerge. Here's what I believe. I believe that when this whole pandemic is done, that we're going to find that really good independent retail businesses are going to be the single most sought after retail businesses in the world. People are going to stop going. They're not going to stop using Amazon, but when somebody has to buy something, their first impulse isn't going to be to go to the mall or to go to a department store or to go to Amazon. Their first impulse is to say, who can I buy that from locally? And then it's our job to make sure that when they go into a local store, that they are getting that kind of service that brings them back.
That's one thing that I think is so remarkable is it was my birthday yesterday, and John said, this is going to be interesting. My 40th was trumped by Jesus because it was Easter Sunday, and then 41st was trumped by COVID. And I had no expectation that anything great was going to happen. I figured there'd be dinner and that kind of thing. But he found a small business on the East Coast that would deliver oysters. Boston. I got it wrong. And then he picked up the phone and called Chalet, right, at Down to Earth, and said, I know, Meghan likes things. And the two of them went through FaceTime, or he allowed her to choose or whatever. and then, you know, the items showed up at the house. And that reminded me of like my aunts talking about personal shoppers at like Macy's or Nordstrom's, where you would walk in and that's been the trunk from Nordstrom's or Stitch Fix, or this very sort of personalized, but not really personalized. And then Chalet popped in things that were specifically from her.
Right.
And was smart enough to leave a gift certificate to say, come in once this ends so that I can see you. And, you know, I mean, I'm clearly going to blow it up because I then get to walk in the store. So
Yes.
do you see all retailers pivoting in spaces like that?
So I don't see all retailers. I think all the ones that are going to emerge from this and be great. I see the retailers of the future doing that. So the term that I'm playing with right now, so in retail, everybody talked about omnichannel, right? So if I'm a customer, I can buy it online, I can pick up in the store, or, you know, I mean, so it was all about distribution. But I think what's really happening here is it's omni-experiential. That the future of retail is exactly what you talked about. Megan, what you were talking about there was called clienteling. And I'll share with you what one of our clients is doing. This person has been a deep part of our community. She was one of our Platinum Mastermind group members for 4 years, but she went with her team and they took all of their customers, every single person on their customer database, and assigned every customer to one of their stylists. She's got 3 high-end women's clothing stores in the Philadelphia area. And so that stylist, they're salespeople, that stylist is responsible for the relationship. So that stylist, you know, Cholet would learn, you know, do you like text? Do you like email? Do you like me to call you on the phone? Oh, you like red? You look great in blue. Oh, something great in red has come in today. So that kind of experience, and this is what's happening right now. This is what we're learning and sharing with our community right now, is it's all about figuring out what people want, how they want to shop, and giving them that experience. Susan and I created a concept, WWMCW, and WWMCW stands for What Would My Customer Want? And that's both an operating philosophy and an operating strategy. A philosophy in that that's the way that we approach the world. What would my customer want? Now, of course, if you say, what would my customer want? A cynic would say, well, they want you to be open 24 hours at the absolute lowest price, right? But those customers can go to Amazon. Those customers can go to Dollar General. Those customers aren't going to be the customers of a good brick and mortar independent retail store. So WWMCW. And then when you start informing your decisions around that question, all of a sudden you're able to deliver the kind of experience that you got.
Yeah.
You know, that, oh my goodness, this is awesome. Why would I go anywhere else when I can get this kind of experience here? And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm so excited about what's happening in retail. You know, when the pandemic is done, people are going to remember who treated them well, right? And that's who they're going to respond to. And when the pandemic is done, I just had a conversation. I'm doing a webinar. I spoke for the Canadian Health Food Association in Vancouver in the, in the fall. And they just hired me to do a webinar. And the program I'm doing is a marketing program. And we talked about, and there's this recognition that everybody's going to want to buy differently after the pandemic. Some people are dying to get back into stores. Some people are afraid to get back into stores. Some people are somewhere in the middle. So what would my customer want? Now, with the world being the way it is, now you have to accommodate all of those people. So it's a big challenge, but it's also a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly smart. It made me think, how do I make this portable into my own business, right? How do I hold the space for, I think there's a quote, right? That people won't remember what you said, they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Maya Angelou.
Yesterday, I was just like blown away. Like these two people have put this whole thing together and figured all of that out. And I thought, how do you do that inside of real estate to make sure that people are intentional and positive? It's a neat pivot. The family style dinners that you're seeing, just the way that we're going back into how do I really serve with intention my client, customers is really beautiful. Steve, I know you have a question.
Well, I think that phrase, especially in our real estate space, just changed my mindset now to refigure this out, right? Because it's this idea of hopefully in the next couple of days, we'll get an answer from our governor here in Michigan that says you're allowed to do whatever the thing you're allowed to do is. We don't know what that is. But ultimately then we'll have new guidelines of how we're supposed to practice, right, in the real estate space. And so everyone will rush to do those guidelines, right, that space. But I haven't stopped enough until you just said that to say, but does the consumer really want those guidelines? Right? Like, are they going to be comfortable with that space of saying, oh, okay, now we're allowed to do a showing with you. You ready to go out today? Like, let's go look at houses. I made this statement with a buyer this morning of saying, I really love when I can put you in my car and we can drive around neighborhoods. And as that's coming out of my mouth, I'm thinking, am I going to have a consumer in my car anytime in the next year or two? Like, and will someone be comfortable with my car, with my kids' boogers back there, right? Like, what is that? Like, they're, it just, so that just shifted my mindset in that place of asking that question is, I can't just assume that what I'm allowed to do is the practice my consumer is going to want me to do. And I have to be flexible enough now in this space to say, which of these three offerings best fit your needs? We can do one or all or a mixture of, right?
Or Steve, let me suggest to you an even different approach. Say, look, so rather than saying, here are the options, say, these are some possibilities. How would you like to handle it?
Yeah.
So if you let them lead the conversation, to Megan's point, that Maya Angelou quote, when you really set yourself up to let them lead the process, of course there has to be parameters, but when you let them lead the process, they feel great because they might have hidden agendas, especially right now. Everybody has a story. Even though somebody may be totally healthy and feel really good about getting in a car with you and going and walking around in a house, there are some people who are mortified. They have compromised loved ones and things like that. So they might have very, very specific ideas on how this whole transaction should be worked. And if you let them lead you, they're going to feel a lot better. I don't know, and I've never been a real estate agent, but I can tell you as somebody who lives in the business world that if you let me lead the process, the sale is yours.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess that's how I would go about it. I'll just share something else that we do with our, with our higher end groups, is this whole thing called a customer experience audit. And, we go and use the example of women's clothing, which, because we were talking about Maureen and her clienteling program, you just go through and you ask yourself, what does this experience look like from the customer's perspective? So in the example of women's clothing, so what does the dressing room experience look like? When somebody walks in, how do they feel? And then when they're in the dressing room, just boom, 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 boom. Take it down to the micro level and ask, is this really the best experience that I can give? And then if the answer is no, say, how can we correct that? And how can we make it even better? And, so that's the way that when it comes to experience, and this is really about leadership too. This conversation is about leadership.
Right.
But if you can really, really dial in the customer experience, your employees will respond, your customers will respond. And, when we talk about lifetime value of a customer, which is a huge part of the way that we think about business. When you give somebody that kind of amazing experience, you know, not only will they not go anywhere else in the future, but those are the people who become your raving fans. So the lifetime value is not only from the transactions you'll get from that particular client, but it's all of the referrals that they'll get from that client. And it's this rippling effect, because if you've, you know, systematized that amazing experience, you know, you just have raving fans, and it just continues to go out. And, you know, that's how you build a business. At least that's
Right.
how we believe you build a business.
I love the intentionality in that too. And just thinking about, these are the tools that I'm going to have inside my car, which no one is going in, Steve, like at all. I had a client that said, can we go shopping? Can we go shopping? And I texted back and said, if she, you know, if we're set free and you promise not to lick me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or sneeze or cough or do any of that. But going into that space of thinking about, like, yeah, I mean, from a buyer standpoint, people may not be comfortable going into a home where people have 7 children. Do you want gloves? Do you want a mask? Do you want, and that surrender into this space of, I've got to treat you the way that you want to be treated and you're most comfortable, you know, as we move forward with an intentional thought process. I think that's really, really bright.
WWMCW. What would my customer want?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bob, on your podcast that you've been doing over the last 27 days, at least the couple that I've watched, you start with congratulations, you're one day further along. Where did that come from? It's full of energy. It's full of joy when you say it. You usually cuss a little bit in it, which I respect as well. But how do you
only mildly, right? Everybody likes a little mild profanity. No F-bombs.
He does
No
bullshit.
offense.
He does.
Yeah. So, you know, how did you come to that mindset of, you know, staying positive in this thing? You know, I'm sure in the 27 days, there's been days that you're like, I'm not feeling congratulatory right now. This really sucks, right? Like, how have you balanced that? And where did that come from? This idea of congratulations, you've made it another day, and
Sure.
we're closer to the end.
Yes. So one of the things that Susan and I recognized right away, there's really 2 mindsets that you can adapt in this. You can have a crisis mindset, or you can have an opportunity mindset. And, you know, Susan and I have spent the last 20 years building a community, you know, built on a very, very customer focused philosophy, and the people who agree with our philosophy, I mean, we've got are attracted us. We have a very loyal community. And when this whole thing happened, Susan and I both recognized right away that we were uniquely built for this. And what I mean by that is, between the 2 of us, we have the skill set, we have the mindset. One of the things that it went to your question, I'm giving you a roundabout answer.
No, keep going. You're good.
So when I had the Mackinac Kite Company, I almost went broke 3 times, right? I mean, I had 3 existential crises in 19 years. So I know how to deal with a crisis, right? I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be facing down bankruptcy, failure, and all of those things. And I used to have a mantra. Brother Steve and I had a mantra. I think it was in our second crisis, where the mantra was, we're never going to be successful in business if we're not in business. And it's interesting, because I have shared that statement with, you know, lots and lots of people over the years, just in the course of having a conversation about business. And the interesting thing is people who have never been entrepreneurs just look at me with a blank look, right? They don't get it. But if I share that with an entrepreneur, like I just shared with the 2 of you, you both go, yeah. I get that, right? I mean, it resonates immediately and viscerally. And so I understand where that is, and I understand that space. And that was one of the reasons we recognized that we were so well suited for it. And I also know that, you know, it's our position as leaders of this community is to lead people to the end, to give them hope, to give them perspective, to give them skills, One of the analogies that I use a lot in this, when I'm doing that, is I used to do a lot of backpacking. I used to live in Colorado, and I used to lead backpacking trips for a job. And one of the things that I learned as in backpacking is that if you're going to go on a real trip, not an overnight trip when the weather looks good, but on a real trip, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, you're going to end up running into shitty weather. And when you're in that, the name of the game is put one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And the goal is to get to the trailhead, because the trailhead represents, a hot meal, a hot shower, a cold beer. And so you just put your head down and you just keep going. And, I've been a business coach for 20 years now. And there's been a lot of that sort of, okay, we just got to keep going. You're going to be all right. This is not a crisis. You just have to keep going. So, and I knew that needed to be part of what I talked about every day. It sort of started naturally, but it caught on. So I stayed with it. Can I share something else with you?
Please keep going. I'll listen for hours.
Okay. Recently, Brendan Burchard, I don't know if you know who Brendan is. Brendan's a New York Times best-selling author and, sort of a mentor of ours. He was a keynote speaker at our Retail Success Summit a couple years ago. And one of the things that I noticed was I was not feeling very filled up myself. So when I'm not feeling filled up as a leader, I know I need to go back and learn. And so I'm part of Brendan's, he's got his HBX coaching or whatever it is. So once a month he gets on the call for an hour or two and gives some Brendan stuff. And it's always good because Brendan is who he is, a tremendous person. So I felt I kind of needed to get filled up. So I went back and I watched his last month's coaching call. And he talked about this whole idea, and this is a leadership thing. He said, if you're a leader, you should have 3, perspectives. Here, let me look. I got to look in my book. I forgot it already. I've been talking all day already. Perspective points. And as a leader, you want to have 3 things that you just keep driving home to the people or the communities that you lead. So, and that just made total sense to me. And the 3 perspective points that I created for our community that I'm trying to drive home in these podcasts, in our community forums, and our tip of the weeks are, number 1 is I've created a mindset model called assess, adjust, and advance. Right? Where are you right now? Figure out where you are and then adjust so you can be back where you want to go and then advance. So the assess, adjust, advance mindset. We're one day closer. That was one of these perspective points, right? You just got to keep going. You got to stay in business. And then finally, the final one is it's all about the hustle, right? There's money out there. There's money out there. There's still plenty of money out there. You just have to be creative and intelligent, and you just need to go and you need to hustle and go get it. And so that's but we're talking about leadership here. As soon as I heard that, that perspective point idea, it was like, oh, that's perfect. And then you just drive those points home. You got a team. Who are we? 3 things. Let's just keep talking about it till it becomes part of the culture.
Yeah, we heard that from Aaron Buer our first week, right? Megan, it's really fun to do these interviews for me because you start hearing similar things just spoken differently because you're getting them from different perspectives. But Aaron Buer is one of the pastors at Ada Bible Church, and his comment was, we learned really quickly that we could only communicate together to our audience 2 things, and that they had to be the same across all facets of everybody communicating. So all of our pastors, all of our people, because otherwise the conversation just went down, right? The messaging went down. And so you saying that same sort of mindset is 3 perspective points It's just like, you can't overwhelm people with, let's do these 8 things and figure, you used to say, well, let's just slap a bunch of things on the whiteboard and figure out which one really works. And if we don't do them all well, that's okay. It's like, no, all of a sudden it's like, you got to just pick your lane and just do those couple things really well and just keep driving those home is what I'm getting from you, right?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because I naturally did that. To your question or to your point, every morning I was starting it with, hey, we're one day closer, we're one day closer.
Yeah.
I hadn't articulated that as a perspective point, but then when, again, learning, when Brendan said that, it was like, yes, that makes sense. Let's find the 3 that we can really hang our hat on until the end of this pandemic, and then at the end of the pandemic, they may change or they may not, but that whole idea of having a framework to reinforce the most important points, that was the concept. That was the framework and the concept that I took out of it. And as a trainer and as a professional speaker and as a coach, frameworks are the way that I think naturally. And, that's kind of what I do, is create frameworks so other people can think about their businesses or their situations more intelligently and accurately, like that, the assess, adjust, and advance mindset. It's people are already using that in conversations on our forums and things like that. And that's when you got something, when people are actually using it. So.
Right.
Really neat about that too is that causes you to have a reference point for how you're going to do this in a foundation, right? So that while everybody has said they're doing this, right? Like Steve said the other day, I don't know if it was on this or just in a conversation, I was fine at 10.
Right.
At 3, I was in a closet eating all the gummy bears and, losing my mind. But I think if you have, I'm going to communicate without fear. Right. I'm going to communicate even when I don't know, or whatever those 3 are. As a leader, you at least have something to come back to and go, oh yeah, okay, so I did that for a minute, but that's not how we're actually going to move forward through this.
That's
right? I love that.
And it's interesting too, because, one of the other, one of the episodes that I did, and a qualifier that I'm throwing in on a regular basis, again, in the context of me and Susan being leaders of a community of retailers, is this whole idea of, it's okay, you got to give yourself permission.
Right?
So it's like hustle, hustle, hustle. But that's what, if you need to go crawl into your closet for an hour, it's okay. But just make sure you come out of the closet, right? Come out of the closet, put on your clothes, go to work, do the deal. So we're in this crazy, crazy time. And, so everybody has to be gentle with themselves while at the same time moving forward.
Yeah, can you speak to today's message that you gave? And I don't think it was your whole thing, but the beginning of it, after you said congratulations, we're one day further. I think you had put up a post about, when under stress, how do you respond? And a lot of people said, well, I respond with action. I get to hustling. And your comment today hit me a little bit differently, which is not what I expected you to respond with, which was, an action could be stop. It could be stopped, right? The idea that like we like, that's okay to stop before you just rearrange your whole team, before you reassign people to new duties, before you come up with new philosophies of doing business. It's okay to stop for a period. I have not heard that from anybody until today from you. Other than counselors, that's their job, just to say slow down
right now,
right? But not entrepreneurs, right? Not business coaches, to say an action might be just a pause.
Right.
How did that come about?
So one of the things that I love to do. So one of our communities is called WhizBang Retailers, and it's a closed group, but it's free. And we let anybody who's a retailer or who has the best interest of retailers at heart in it. And, right now there's about, 4,500 members. And one of the things that I love to do to create engagement is to throw a thought out and then say, agree, question mark, disagree, question mark. What are your thoughts, question mark. So yesterday, the thought was always respond to stress with action, which is one of the things that I've been teaching ever, just forever, right? Because I went through 3 crises and I learned that if you just let yourself stress out when you're under duress like that, it's incredibly unhealthy. If you do something, it alleviates the stress and it brings you closer to getting out of the mess that you're in. So I threw that out there and it had a very, very robust response. And a lot of people said that they disagreed, that you shouldn't respond to stress with action, that you should stop. They said, I disagree. When I get stressed out, I stop. Or I disagree. When I get stressed out, I take a deep breath, or, something like that. And so the remark that I made this morning that you're referring to was I just said, well, let's just back this up a little bit, because as entrepreneurs, we think of stress of action as something very, very concrete. I'm going to build my training program. I'm going to rearrange my team. I'm going to, send everybody to this sales course, or I'm going to do something big. But actually, stop is an action. Stop is a verb, right? Stop, stopping. So what I wanted to do, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because, it shows that it had some impact, is that, I wanted to reframe it and to recognize that, to your word, Megan, intentionality, that stopping and catching your breath, or stopping and, just sort of getting your calm about you, or regrouping, is an action. And it's often the best action. And it's totally counterintuitive to what entrepreneurs typically feel. And it becomes even more counterintuitive when you're in the middle of a crisis and you think, by God, I've got to do something.
Right.
So that's what that was all about. And Steve, thank you for saying that. I don't get feedback, so that's good to know. Thank you.
when it's changing every 12 hours, or 24 hours or 48 hours, it's really hard. Steve's been trying to structure a plan through this whole thing, and I don't know that everything is figure outable right now. Some things are, but as we keep getting more information, it seems like as leaders, we're constantly asked to adjust, notice, shift in that space.
So can I share another one of our frameworks with you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So another framework that we've developed that has been really, really powerful. We don't really, it's not part of our regular vernacular, but with our Platinum Mastermind group, it's really, really taken root. And it's this concept of ADD. And ADD stands for ask, discuss, decide. And it came about because, in all of these conversations I have with retailers, I found myself constantly saying to them, well, what does your team think? You should ask your team about that. Yeah. And then one day I was like, oh, now there's a principle. You see, one of the mistakes that entrepreneurs make, especially businessmen, or leaders, not just entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs who are also serious about leadership, is we feel like we have to have the answer. And so, there's a problem, and by God, I'm going to figure out this problem, and then I'm going to be like Moses. I'm going to come off the mountain. I've got my 2 tablets, my 10 commandments. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go kick some ass, and away we go.
Amen.
But that's not the way to do it. So recognize. So Megan, how many people are on your team? 10. May I suggest to you that you have more talent and intelligence and wisdom and experience in that group of 10. The room is always smarter than the one.
Yep.
So this whole idea of ADD, ask. So ask, what is the problem or the opportunity that we face right now? Discuss. You guys, we're a mastermind. So you look at your team as a mastermind, not as a group of foot soldiers sent out to go out into the world to do your bidding with your 2 tablets, right? And 10 commandments. So, so then you say, look, I want your opinion. So that's the discuss. Now, as a leader, it's your job to make sure that the discussion remains lively. So when you see them, hey, let's go out for coffee, you take everybody out for lunch. Have you thought about that? If you have an internal Slack channel or something like that, you just keep the conversation going. But you need to take that discuss and make it time bound. So we're going to discuss this for 3 days, 5 days, however long. If it's a big problem, it might be longer. If it's a little problem, big opportunity, little opportunity. So you make it time bound. At the end of that time, you make a decision. What we found is that generally a consensus will form. You don't need to make a decision. Your mastermind has made the decision for you. And so that becomes the decision. And then it's just rinse and repeat. It's just rinse and repeat. If that decision didn't work, well, you go back and you discuss it some more. So, you have the responsibility to take responsibility for the results, but you don't have to figure things out because you've got all of that talent and wisdom and intelligence all there. You just need to tap into it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know why I didn't think of it, or someone didn't think of it sooner, or maybe, people, it's the servant leadership idea, but really put into more of a model.
Yeah, I like that. I say all the time, I don't want to be anybody's boss.
Right.
I'm terribly wrong when you have to actually be somebody's boss. I want to be on a team. And I want to get things done with you. And they joke with me and say, because I'm an only child, that's why I hire people, because I don't like to be alone. So I want to make sure that we hold the space for how do we, I don't own a retail store.
Right.
How do we support and make sure we're supporting in the right way people as we move through this? It seems like there's lots of different, I know Chalet and love her. There's 4 or 5 other boutiques that we would shop at. How do we do that? How do we figure that out?
The main way to do it is to spend money, and it's more difficult to spend money, and it's less convenient to spend money. But, you can go on to Amazon and things like that. A lot of people, so in our community, a lot of people are doing, they're selling gift certificates right now. So if there's a store that you really want to see survive, spend some money with them. But there is, and people are doing interesting things around it. You talked about Chalet, but if you're going to spend a couple $100, $500 with Chalet in the next year, and you have that money to spare, spend it now. Spend it because she needs them. Not only, not she. I won't make
everyone who's in that.
Everyone who you want to support. There's a couple things that they need. They need money. They're business people, but they also need hope. Right. And so if you can, so in our community on WhizBang Retailers, there are so many stories where somebody, called up and said, hey, I just want to support you. Let me give you some money. And that's, most business people don't want a gift, but they want that support. So when somebody just calls up out of the blue and says, hey, I really appreciate you. I want you to be there. Here's some money. Even though I can't spend it now, or I don't need anything now. In the case of clothing, oh my God, the fashion industry is just in a state of total disarray right now. But just that whole thing. Some people really like likes on Facebook, and just show them a little. So there's money, but there's also emotional support. But you've been using the word intentionality a lot. Megan, and I think it's a great word, but really that thoughtfulness for, to sit down and say, who is important to me?
Right.
Because there's going to be fallout. There's going to be a lot of fallout. And some of it is, I never like to see a business go out of business. And I hate to see a person suffer the pain that comes from, a business that fails. But there's going to be fallout, and there's going to be a lot of businesses that don't make it, small and large. New York Times just did a story, and they think that this pandemic may be the end of department stores. And if it's the end of department stores, it really portends the ends of malls, because, department stores hold malls together. But so there's going to be a huge fallout. And the question that you need to ask yourself is, who's important to me? And when you understand who's important to you, that's who you support, both emotionally and financially.
I did have two things that I saw recently. Well, one was, Earth's Edge, we've often ordered, right? Logoed stuff, Patagonia, North Face stuff. So why not purchase that stuff right now as a business owner, knowing that
Perfect.
It's going to be Christmas presents and we're going to need the expense. And then I saw a neat thing online the other day where they were doing Christmas in July. And so they were ordering Christmas gifts and figuring out all of that a little sooner than we normally would. Things that, are packaged up. It's such a hard position to be in, to try to make decisions when we're stopped, right? Like we can't do our job the way that we want to, but by the grace of God, a couple of deals without breaking any rules, I've been able to do it. And so I look at that and think, to those who much is given, much is expected. So a portion of that has to go to my friends who don't have that resource to be able to sell a house sight unseen and, head in that direction. It's just such a hard space to choose. Like, I love everybody. I want everybody to do well. And I don't have all the money. I played the lotto like twice last week, thinking like, maybe I could fix this if I could hit it big,
Yeah. Well, so speaking of leadership, I think that, I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of people. And, right now, leadership is first and foremost being a good human being. Yeah. For our retail clients, the big thing is safety. Okay. First and foremost, be a good human being, be a responsible member of your community. And I think that if you let that drive your decisions and to your point, intentional, I think in WWMCW, what would my customer want as a business person? I think that, I believe that the decisions start to fall into place when you have some guiding principles to sort of lead you through the decision-making process.
Yeah, you're a special guy, Bob Negen.
Thank you.
I get the great honor of being a close friend with your wife and having her champion me in everything I'm afraid of. But you're just as great as she is.
Thank you. I have the great honor of being married to her.
I know. Listen, like if I swung that direction, she would be first.
There you go.
Nice. She's got it all put together there. Low maintenance, not a lot of drama. She's a good egg.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah. Oh, yep. It's been my honor. It's been my honor. Just really happy. And, you all ask good questions, and that's appreciated too. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bob, for joining us. I have 3 pages of notes. That's more than I've taken so far. So
good.
And I'm dyslexic and ADD, and I don't take notes, so 3 is a lot. So thank you for that. I think what you're doing with your daily podcast does bring hope. So if someone hasn't told you that, I'm telling you now, like, I'm appreciative of what you're doing in saying, one more day, just keep going, and being vulnerable in who you are. Because I think the vulnerability of leadership also is understood or underserved. And I think you're serving it well. So thank you for leading well and participating with us.
Thank you. May I share one other thing real quickly?
Yeah.
Yep.
So our podcast is, we do it for retailers, for our community, but most of it is not retail specific. So, this goes out to entrepreneurs and people in the real estate space. And Steve, you found some value in it this morning. But if anybody wants to tune in, it's at WhizBang Training. That's our Facebook page, and we do it live 5 days a week at 9:30. And we'd love to, be of service to any of your viewers or listeners too.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank
you, Bob, for
You're
spending
welcome.
the time.
All right.
See you
Take
guys.
care.
Thank you for joining us.
Support local. See you soon.
All right, we're clear.
I'm like, it took her.
I know. So that's what we call the frozen smile.
I know. I'm like,
Right.
Thank you. That was perfect.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Okay.
Have a beautiful afternoon.
Okay. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Okay.